The U.S. Senate has passed a provision that would let states require online retailers to collect sales tax and deliver it back to state coffers. In New Mexico, that's called gross receipts, certainly, and it could easily amount to tens of millions of dollars. Supporters say it levels the playing field for local businesses. Opponents say it hurts consumers. Javier, let me start with you. Just a real simple question. We stand to gain, it's debatable the actual amount, but it's many millions of dollars.
Right.
Should this be an effort by this governor and this administration and this legislature to actually do something about this? Are we at the point we need this money so badly that we should just take a dive and do this?
Well, you know, because of that last-minute tax package that was passed by the legislature in the middle of the night, it's been disputed how much the state will be in the hole over the next several years. So I think this is probably money that we do need. I would caution, though, we shouldn't use this money to plug a hole here or plug a hole there.
Right.
I think we need to be very, very strategic about where it goes. I would argue we need to look at early childhood education, which is terribly underfunded in the state of New Mexico, and also K through 12.
Interesting. Mylon, it's interesting, Scott, but I appreciate what Javier just mentioned. Scott Walker, governor of Wisconsin, is reporting that he's going to be on board with this and use it to lower basically income sales tax. I'm sorry, that's not true. Personal tax for people of that state. A way to kind of swap money, as Javier was just mentioning. Now, here in New Mexico, the governor has come out and said she doesn't want to impose any more taxes on citizens. Is she taking the right approach here, or is she losing out something and trying to stick with a tact here?
Well, I'm not sure there's much money there. I was covering a legislative committee meeting earlier this week, and they had a report from the Martinez administration about it. And the pitch to the legislators was the big companies are already doing this. It's only the small ones that are not in compliance. So there's not as much money there as perhaps people perceive. How much is a question, but any name operation, according to the governor's administration, is already in compliance.
Did they have a number in that meeting that they were working with?
There was no number, but the way it was described after much questioning was anybody who's a big operator is really complying, and so we're left with smaller operations working over the web with sales that are not. So it may not be a bonanza.
And of course, that part of that Senate bill that Mylon just mentioned is under $1 million in sales. You're exempt. And that would fit into New Mexico in a very interesting way, wouldn't it? That's not that many businesses over $1 million. You know what I'm saying? There's interesting parts to this.
Yeah, I guess I am sort of surprised to hear from the governor's team that the big businesses are already charging sales tax, because I do look when I'm on Amazon, and I will admit buying trash bags and things like that, which I'm sort of embarrassed, and at the same time sometimes that happens. I see that I'm not being charged sales tax, and so I would question how frequently that is happening. Amazon is, of course, the 800-pound gorilla out there. You know, early on, the push against sales tax on online purchases, the message was, listen, we don't want to kill online commerce. Right. Now that seems laughable.
That's right.
The idea that we could ever injure commerce on the internet. And what we're seeing is the incredible impact that online sales have had on the mom and pop stores.
Let me ask you a question. Here's what bothers me about this argument. This idea that this is going to level the playing field for smaller retailers, I can't see it. Honestly, I cannot see that this brings anything to level with a bigger
No, because I think really one of the big challenges that local businesses have now is the convenience factor. Do I get in my car and drive some distance in the hopes of finding it in stock, or do I order it online and wait 2 days?
That's right.
I think that our purchasing behaviors have changed. However, certainly those local retailers feel strongly that it's going to help them. I'm not sure that that's where we can make the decision. I think that we are leaving money on the table as a state, and I do feel that there is a parity issue there. When you look at the case law, interestingly enough, there is a case that has been argued before the New Mexico Supreme Court, and they haven't issued their decision yet, against BarnesandNoble.com, New Mexico Tax and Rev, saying, hey, you guys owe us a lot of money. And Barnes and Noble saying, hey, we don't really do business in New Mexico.
Sure. Let me get to Jamie. We're under a minute. Interesting. A bunch of Republican governors out there are actually on board with this. Chris Christie in New Jersey just made a deal. Well, he said to somebody, look, you can put up a warehouse here if you give us the tax thing. We'll do a swap, jobs for the taxes. Is our governor on the wrong side of this? Because there's 3 or 4 heavy-duty
Well,
Republican
look,
governors who were
she made a
figuring this
commitment that
out.
she wasn't going to raise taxes, and this would be going against that promise. So I think that's probably why she's mostly opposed to this thing, even if other Republican
How long can
governors
that
support
hold,
it.
though?
Well, I don't know, but it depends. I don't think I honestly don't think we're leaving much money on the table because it's just not our model here in New Mexico. But I think the broader issue as to why there's a lot of Republican opposition to this thing is the fact that you're empowering states to collect taxes beyond our borders, which is just really unprecedented. And I think that just goes beyond the reach of what government is really supposed to be doing, especially in taxing. The authority ought to be within the borders.